Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, we're going to go over a topic that some of you guys were asking about: why women chase like certain types of men and why they continue to do so without giving some of you guys a chance. And I think there is a lot of truth to this. And we're going to go over some of the points. I don't fully think that this is healthy. A lot of this, I don't fully agree that somebody should subject themselves to this, whether it's the man or the woman. And I'll explain more as I go on. But the research that I use is in the description box so that you guys can follow as well. But I'll describe the research. The first one is kind of based on some of the research from any sort of evolutionary psychology. And basically, the best way to put it is traits that are linked to survival and reproduction. This one is the most obvious, but I also feel that it's one of the most fundamental reasons this occurs. We see that preferences do evolve over time. And part of the reason that this happens is we see these characteristics do historically increase, I guess, the reproductive success. And so these are kind of the things that we started noticing with the patterns that tend to, maybe years ago, this wasn't as prominent, but is more prominent now, is the best way to put it. So this is a little bit more modern, but again, this is adjusting even as time goes on now. The main traits that I notice, and you can look the research too, is any sort of resource access. And I think that that can be really anything. But the way that it looked in the research broke it up into a couple things. When you have some sort of status or leadership role or financial position, a lot of times, subconsciously and consciously, women believe that this will give them resource access to which they feel like it can help not just the family that you guys will have, but also generations to come. So she wants to secure those types of things to help her and your family and the offspring that you have. Now, this was across multiple cultures. So this is not just the United States. And it does show how strongly women look for and want men who have a certain resource accessibility. However, it was found that women who have certain types of characteristics from their own presenting reasons, or maybe their father or mother, they are less likely to want this, or they're less likely to chase this. And so an example would be like a career-driven woman, which I know a lot of you guys don't like career-driven ladies, and I'm not saying that's a bad or good thing. I don't really care at all. But I know that a lot of women who are a little bit more career-driven based on this research, she's looking for different traits. So not necessarily resource access, but she might be looking for a little bit more emotional characteristics. However, sometimes what we can see is there are some women who, as they reach higher ranks, they want a man to have even more than them, which can be difficult. But because let's say she makes 200K and she wants a man to make more than she does, that's really, really like a really small percentage, which limits her ability. But I'll make a separate video on that topic another day. But for today, any sort of resource, especially in comparison to her, can really help. Some women, like I mentioned, if they're more career driven, it's not something they're certainly looking for, but some want that even more. So it really depends on the lady. But in general, overall, if you have any sort of resource accessibility, ladies are more likely to chase you. The next one is interesting, and I don't recommend anyone putting themselves in the situation because the divorce rates and breakup rates are much higher in this group. However, if I did not tell you this, I feel like I would be doing a disservice because it's prominent in the research. Women with lower self-esteem tend to pursue distant or even uninterested men. You guys, I think you know this, but let's talk about it anyways. Why is this occurring? In her life, she felt that the only way for her to be validated was if somebody, likely a man, maybe because her father left, whatever is the experience that she had, unfortunate for her, she feels like that will secure her role in this world. And usually it proves that she's lovable. So a lot of times, if you're not interested in somebody and you see somebody is really overly pursuing you, usually it's because she has lower self-esteem. Now, if she's younger, 19, 20, 21, it might be a little bit more common. But as she starts growing up, 25, 23, 24, 25, 26, all the way up, whatever your age range is for your interest, she's going to probably not have this issue as much. The research does show it's much more common with particularly younger ladies. The next one is any sort of emotional impact that you have on her. This is interesting because it's not necessarily logical, which is why it can be kind of tricky to track. But if you do track it, it is shown, and you can look at the research. Men who create a strong emotional response, and this is interesting because it's both positive or negative emotional responses, interesting enough, are more compelling. And this, again, is more common if the lady is, if she comes from a childhood that's a little bit strained. Childhood neglect, abuse, whatever it is. This means that if you have even more strong emotional responses, you're likely going to attract those types of women. And so the reason why I say this can be a little bit like, take this with a grain of salt, as every part of my video and all my videos. If you are a guy and you really, really want a lady, this probably will work. But is that lady going to be the best option for you? Probably not, just because it's based on the fact that she's got trauma. And so she's going to put that into the relationship. And unfortunately, what we've seen, and you can look into the research, once the relationship starts becoming more predictable, sometimes she'll pick fights to make it more unpredictable again, because that's what makes her driven for the relationship, which is not healthy because stability is fundamental to healthy marriages. But it is true. But even healthy women, if you give them at least some sort of safety, which is a strong emotional response to some women, any sort of excitement, any sort of understanding towards her, that can be compelling too. So it can be a healthy emotional impact as well. I just felt like it was important to clarify some of the differences. The next one is social competence. We've talked about this before. Usually, and this was across all types of ladies. Every person is different though, but even like, it doesn't matter if she came from a little bit of a strained background and then someone who had a more healthier background. Those both groups still prefer social competence regardless. Usually it's like a man who can lead conversations. He is able to read social cues, which is really interesting. That one I found was interesting. He's comfortable in group settings, and he tends to be a bit more at ease in social situations. This one was one of the most fundamental ones. They all are, which is why I put in this video, but I think they're all pretty interesting. But that one's pretty cool too, of course. Then the last one is similar to the traumatic types of women that we were talking about earlier. Some women feel like they're lacking purpose. And a lot of times it's from a traumatic background, but it doesn't always have to be. But often it does. And they feel like they're lacking purpose, direction, and their own perceived worth. A lot of people think when anyone talks about purpose or direction, it's talking about career. It doesn't have to be. Anybody can have any purpose. If you have a purpose to open, I don't know, like a dog shelter or a cat shelter, you want to house all these animals, that's a purpose. You want to be the best cook, that's a purpose. It doesn't have to be you want to become a CEO of a company. It doesn't have to be, right? But a lot of ladies who are lacking some sort of purpose, and it usually does come from childhood trauma, she tends to attract and chase men who have their own wounds. So I don't know if you've ever seen, have I talked about this before on this channel? Like Hoodville on Instagram. He's funny. He's unique, but he's funny. And one of his, like a common reoccurring meme that he shows is like women who are like really attracted to these like really broken men who are like felons and things like that. This is kind of what that is, right? She's like really attracted to a guy who's like struggling. So it doesn't have to be emotionally disinterested like the first one we were talking about, but it's like his life is struggling a lot and she's really attracted to him. And the reason why is because her purpose is so she can fix him. So do you see how that the lacking of purpose suddenly came in? Because she feels like she can have a purpose to fix him, and it validates her to feel like, okay, this, unfortunate guy who's struggling, if he changes for her, that proves that she's valuable. So it's not healthy, but it is common with women who are lacking this type of thing. So I'm not saying that you should become any of these men. My attempt is to validate a lot of the experiences that you guys have had. If you've been rejected by a lot of ladies who end up chasing these men who are not so good for her, this is probably why. And I want you to understand that there are still healthy women out there. It's difficult because more healthy and mentally stable women probably are in a relationship, and a long-term relationship. I'm just giving you the facts. I'm not trying to discourage you, but it is this happens, and it's why perfectly reasonable and attractive men still get ignored compared to other men. But you can take some of this. You can understand that being more socially competent will help raising your financial status, or just being more confident in general. Some of these come from maybe some sort of confidence, some of them. That can help, but it's up to you to decide. This is just informational purposes. I hope this video was helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.